This webinar is brought to you by the trainers at Cloud Design Box, and we automate class teams, subject teams, department teams, and provide lots of features and training to help save teachers time. Click the subscribe button to get easy access to Teams and SharePoint guides for teachers, students, businesses, and admin.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this live event from Cloud Design Box. My name is Joe, and I'll be taking the session this morning. And we're going to take a look at setting up class homepages in Teams, which is quite a new feature. So I'm sure people have lots of questions around it, maybe wondering where to start with it. So I'll get started to do the presentation. If it'll let me skip slide. Oops. Fantastic. Okay. So just to start with, a little bit of a technical error there. Just a little bit about Cloud Design Box. So we're a team of education Teams experts, and we support now over 400 schools worldwide. And we deploy Teams, SharePoint, and tie all of those different aspects together, Microsoft Education, with a SharePoint intranet, adding lots of value to the features of Teams and SharePoint. So we work with primary, secondary colleges. We also work with multi-academy trusts. So working with Microsoft, we work with lots of different products, and there's lots of integrations and add-ins. So we try to specialize in education technology specifically. The company was founded in 2015, and it's growing, and we've successfully doubled in size each year since then. So I'll just introduce myself on this call. So today there are two of us on the call. My name's Joe. I'm a trainer for Cloud Design Box. So it's my job to go into schools and begin, if the schools aren't familiar already, training with Teams and SharePoint and all of the other things that come with class Teams as well, like the class notebook and assignments. Also on the call, we have our director who's producing the session for me today. That's Tony. He's our consultant and director at Cloud Design Box.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Tony.
Really looking forward to this topic. I know it's a brand new feature, so yeah, lots to learn today. So yeah, very excited to see what we've got.
Yeah, that's the lovely thing with Microsoft. They have these fantastic updates that appear, and we really want to make some good use of them. But we do have to learn them a little bit first. So hopefully we'll get our heads around that a little bit today. Just before we carry on as well, this is a live event, so it's a little bit different from a Teams meeting. If you want to ask any questions through the event, there should be a Q&A button up at the top of the screen there instead of chat. That allows you to post questions. People can reply to questions and have a bit of discussion in there too. Tony's going to watch those and let me know if I miss any really good questions. I'd really love to hear as well if people are using Homepage, if they've put anything specific on there that they've found really useful. I know it's early days, but it'd be great to hear from you guys as well. So a little bit of background around the homepage within Teams. So on that left-hand side there, you can see, you may have noticed homepage just appearing within class Teams at the top there, alongside all of the other features within a class team. So it's very new for 2022. Every class team essentially now has an editable SharePoint homepage. Now at Cloud Design Box, we work a lot with SharePoint pages, so we're quite familiar with how they are built and how they are designed. You may be browsing them every single day, but you've not really gone into editing them. Now this allows you to start editing a SharePoint page. So I'll do a little bit of that in the session. The unique thing about this is often we talk about SharePoint pages, big audiences are coming in and viewing document libraries and all sorts of useful information. But this SharePoint page is within the class team. So you've got to think about your audience here. It's only going to be the students in the class and the teacher or teachers in that class. So that is really going to help you decide what kind of information you're going to put on this homepage, if any. So the idea behind it is to act as a bit of a hub for your class. So you can post like really nice visual information on there, whereas Teams is generally based around messages and files. We now have a nice page that the teacher can edit and the students can just browse. So we'll take a look at what it looks like in a second. So the way I wanted to sort of talk about the homepage is, what do we get out of the box? So It does work straight out of the box. We don't have to edit it. There's a little screenshot there of what you're likely to see when it comes straight out of the box in Teams. Some of those out of the box features can just be tweaked slightly, so we can go to sort of the next level and just tweak them, make them a little bit more relevant to our class. And then if you're feeling really confident with SharePoint, you can obviously go much further and begin to add what we call web parts in. And you can play with the layout as well. So it's a nice place to have a practice with editing SharePoint pages if you've not done that already. Really, the outcome of the session today is having another feature in the class team can send a bit of a panic. We've got another job to do with each class team, and we've got to do this for every class. So there's a bit of a worry about admin time. So we'll talk about just quick tweaks you can add. We'll also look at how to make it dynamic, so we can sort of set and forget in a way, so that it'll just update with bringing information from elsewhere. And the other outcome is to sharpen our SharePoint page editing skills. So if you want to take it that far, and we'll go through our top tips that we like to use with editing SharePoint pages. Okay, after the slideshow, we'll go into some questions. But before that, I'll do a little demonstration. And we'll use the class team. Okay, so here we are in the landing page of our intranet site. If you are a Cloud Design Box user, you know that you can get to your classes nice and easily. We put links everywhere to the class dashboard, or we can drop down using our burger button and the mega menu to jump into our subjects and classes. So in this example, I'm just going to use a Year 10 physics class because the homepage has not yet been edited. So we'll jump into our class dashboard. Here you see you have lots of useful links around the class, the subject and the team. We're just going to go on the right hand side here and go directly into the class team. Okay, so here we are. Now the first thing to consider, this new element is called the home page, but actually when you go into a team, either from the Teams app or our class dashboard, you are always directed to the general channel first. So Teams is still about communication, still about managing files. The home page sounds like it should be the place you go first, but actually it's just a place for information. So the general channel is still always the first place you come to within Teams. If you have home pages enabled, you will see it appear at the top here. So you might have noticed this just appear in this new academic year, and we can jump straight into it. So it is at the top. And you'll see here, just like that screenshot, we've got all of those out of the box web parts appearing. If you don't see homepage appear here, it may be turned off. Your Teams admin may not have enabled the feature. So maybe after this webinar, you can approach them and decide that you really want to start using this. When we're working in Teams, whether it's with this page or with Class Notebook or assignments, and you're using a small screen, I always find it quite useful to just expand the view. If you see this expand button anywhere, you get some extra screen space, and we can view that page a little bit better. Just for this demonstration as well, I'm also going to just full screen. Hopefully that doesn't kick everyone off. Yep, great. So I've just full screen my browser. Now it looks a little bit more like what you would expect to see in the Teams app as well. So I'm maximizing my real estate, as they say, with screen space. Okay, so as a teacher, I can come in and I can view the page, but I do have an edit button up at the top right. And the student should see pretty much the same thing, but some of these web parts will be based around the student login. So they might see slightly different things within the web parts. So let's go through and just show you how this is already doing its job, whether you edit it or not. So we have a nice welcome image. We do have this text here suggesting what we might want to post in this text box. We have some links. These are called resources, and they're mostly based around Microsoft at the moment. So I can learn more about what the homepage is. Or if my students have not used Teams much before, this is quite a nice link. They can click on here and do a little get started with Teams for Education. Next, we have some more dynamic web parts. So these are already working for us. We can see the assignments for the class are being drawn into this assignments web part here with the due date. And if I was to click that, it would take me directly to the assignment, whether I'm a teacher marking it or a student that's been assigned that assignment. So the more I set, this will display more in the list. On the right as well, you'll see class schedule. So because we have a weekly physics revision class, we're rather crazily scheduled at 6:30 a.m. till 7 every, is that Thursday? That is getting pulled through, and these are channel meetings from the class team. So just for this team, any events will be dragged into the class schedule. So that's quite nice. You can create a channel meeting and it'll bring it in. There's a little about me here, and you can see that it doesn't have any specific info in it, but it should be nice and easy for us to edit that. And we have recent files at the bottom. So this is what I mean by based around user. This user has been accessing this worksheet quite a lot, so it's brought up that worksheet for them in recent files. So that would bring up the students' most recently accessed files. So you can leave it at that. It is quite useful, especially the assignments and the class schedule. It allows the students to just get a quick snapshot of what's going on in the class from this page. But if you do want to make it a little bit more interesting and specific, we can begin to edit. So we'll take a look at that next.
Joe, before you do that, just have a couple of questions
great.
come in.
Whoops.
So somebody's asked, is this where all my resources should go? Should I embed all my curriculum resources on the class homepage?
Yeah, that's a great question. Simple answer I would say is no. You can put links to them in there, so we'll go through that in a second. But it's not really a storage site. It's really just a visual site for people to view, so get information. We'll look at how to easily link into your curriculum sites. If you're a Cloud Design Box user, we have our subject sites already, so we can link into these. So this is not the place you would use that. Also consider this is just for this class. So if I was to put resources into here, it would only be for that class. So if you're looking at really saving teacher time, you want to be centralizing those resources so you can dish them out to different classes. It's a really good question because as I go through the web parts, I'll sort of answer that because maybe that question came up when I was talking about recent files. You can edit this web part to suit. So I'll go through and hopefully sort of answer that question. Please ask more questions as I go through if I've not quite answered it. That's a really good question.
Great. So this is just for one class. So you'd recommend putting those resources in a single place rather than on each individual class. Because if you're a teacher, you teach lots of different classes, that's going to be extra work for you. And we don't want this to create extra work. We want it to save teachers time.
Yes.
The other question we had was, does this replace the SharePoint intranet? And I was just my answer to that was no, it doesn't. This is just a site for that one particular class, like we said previously. It may create some extra work for teachers if they're going to edit these pages. So that's why that out of the box view that Joe just demonstrated, it does work. It does bring stuff in. You don't have to make changes here. It's great if you do have time to do that, though. You can obviously make it look great and add some stuff that I'm sure Joe will go through shortly. But don't feel that you have to update this page because it does come out of the box with web parts that automatically feed in information with some useful links and assignments, etc.
Yes, absolutely. So one thing you might want to do is leave it in its out of the box phase. Some of the things I go through today, you might add as you go through the year. So you might think, wow, we're using this website a lot. Maybe I'll add a link to that website, halfway through the year. So you can continuously keep changing this page to sort of suit the class. I'm sure there's plenty of other things you need to do at the start of term beyond this. So just to know it's fine out of the box, but we can we can build on it over time as well. So if we do want to edit it, here we go into our maybe your first time in editing SharePoint pages. I'm just going to use the edit button at the top right. And to start with, I'm not going to change any layout. I'm not going to add anything extra. I'm just going to go through what's there and modify it. So this will probably be your first stage if you've got a bit of time to do this and you just want to make it suit your class a bit better. So editing SharePoint pages, without going into too much detail, you have sections down the left-hand side. So as we go through, you can see every time there's a plus button, it's a new section. And then within those sections, you can mouse over these modular blocks, and these are called web parts. So sometimes a section will have one column like this one. Sometimes it'll have two, and you can change those, but we'll get to that at the end. What we're going to start with is just editing what's there. So first section has two web parts. It has an image and it has some text in there. So first things first, let's click into our first web part here. And you'll notice this is a great one to start with because there's 3 levels of editing within it. So when we click on a web part, we have some controls here. We can edit, duplicate, or delete. So we're just going to focus on editing to start with. And you'll see here that we can start to change all of the different aspects of this web part. So this is a nice big image at the top of the screen. It's going to grab everyone's attention. It's currently just some books, and that will be the same on every class you have. So if we want to change that, just up here, we can click change. And you have a myriad of options where you can bring images from. So we can search the web. We can bring in images from our OneDrive. If there are images within the site, maybe class materials within Teams. So this is how this is linked together. It's just the team resources. We could jump in there and we could grab some images if we have any. You can upload from your computer. If I click choose image, it'll bring up my file explorer there. I can upload, or you can copy a link into an image online as well. First tip of using images in SharePoint, try and use high quality images. So if you've got some professional photos taken and they're in your OneDrive, you could upload those, maybe a picture of the classroom. You can certainly do that. But if you just want a nice high quality image, we'd recommend sticking, especially to start with stock images. So these are all really high quality stock images, and you can search by an adjective here, you can see, or just a topic, and it'll bring things up. So this is a physics class. I'm going to type in physics. I'm not going to be very inventive, and it'll just bring up me some related sort of images. So we've got magnetism there, things like that. I actually really like that one. It's nice and clear. I'm just going to select it, and then at the bottom there, sorry, with the screen share, it's just cut this off for me. I can add the image in there. My taskbar is playing up today, so it's stuck on the screen. Usually I have it minimized. So we have this nice image in. You can leave it at that. It is quite square and blocky, and it's going to take up a lot of screen space. So if you want to edit the image itself, we have another level. So we can go in here and we can crop that down. We can resize it. So let's just crop it and make it a little bit smaller. If it loads, there we go. Trying to make it a little bit thinner, a little bit more like a banner on the screen, really. So if you're happy with that, just click outside of it and it'll stick. Okay, so you can go back in, you can copy, resize, and realign. There's lots of different things you can do in here, but I'm happy. You can either click outside or you can hit the save button here and it'll save it. Okay, so there's probably more creative people than me that could put a much nicer image in there, but that's a good start for me. I'm happy with that. I'm then going to just go back to the web part here, and you can see you can add some text in. So that's on by default. We can switch that on and off with the editing tools if you don't want it, but it's a nice title for me. So I'm just going to put welcome to year 10 physics. Okay. I'm just going to resize that. So this is one thing with SharePoint pages, you may find yourself constantly just republishing the page and then thinking, oh, I'll just change that a little bit. So I'm just going to resize it. It's a little bit too big stuff. That's better. Now, when you're doing this, it's a good idea to republish all the time. So we're in editing mode. It doesn't always look quite as we would expect once it's published. So once you're happy, just republish, and then you can have a little look at that. There, much smarter. Okay. Right, so we'll go back into edit mode and we'll take a look at the next little bit here. We've got text box. So text boxes, you get all of these great editing tools. You can copy and paste text straight into here if you want to, but you can see we can have things like bullets, underlines. We can change it from normal text to a heading or a title, and you can put whatever you like in here. Considering you don't want to be coming in here and editing this a lot, I will only going to put some information here that is relevant for the entire year. So I'm going to say this class changes rooms every 2 weeks. And it's a question my students constantly ask. Week A, what classroom are we in? So we're in D4. And then in week B, oops, we're in B7. So I no longer have to constantly tell my students that. It's sat on my class homepage so they can find it nice and easily. I could make this text more interesting, but I'm just going to leave it at that for now. So I really would recommend putting something in here that's really important for your students and they can see that all of the time. If you don't want that, you could obviously delete that web part and just have your title, but we'll leave that text for now and republish. Okay, so already it's becoming really relevant to my class, just looking at that. Got a physics related image and we've got some text in there too. Next web part we've got, we're in a new section here with 2 columns. I'm going to leave assignments and class schedule as they are because they're doing the job. They're bringing things in and they're going to change and I don't have to edit them at all. They're fantastic web parts, really dynamic. Resources here, I might want to change that a little bit. So one thing I might want to add is, as we mentioned before, the long-term subject library. So this is not, I'm not going to store that in the class team. It's stored elsewhere. And in my case, it's stored in SharePoint. So we have a physics subject site and we want to copy the link to that. So students can go straight into physics and they can find all of the resources that I've stored in SharePoint in this case. So I'll just copy that link in there. Taskbar is so annoying. Just exit full screen for a second and click add. Here we go. So I've got physics home here. And again, if you jump into your web parts, every little modular part in it is editable. So if I wanted to change the physics home bit, I can click it there. We can change the title. And a nice little trick, if you want to go a little bit further with these links, is use icons. These are great. And I can change these just here. So again, it's a lot like these stock images, but you've got this huge library of icons. Maybe I'll just put a book so people know that it's like a resource library there. Great. These existing links may not be useful for me, so I can edit them or remove them here as well. And let's just edit this one. And another example of what we might want to put in here, maybe our class uses Flipgrid a lot. So we're always going into Flipgrid, we're always adding videos. How about I just, first of all, change that link at the top. And we're going to use this from a link. Copy in our Flipgrid site. And again, I'll just change the icon to make it a little bit relevant. Flipgrid's all about videos and flip learning, so I'll put a camera in there. Excellent. Maybe not a security camera, just a normal camera. Excellent. So this web part is great because I can just add those links as I go through the year. I was talking about that before. Your class might evolve. You might start using new resources. You might discover a fantastic website. You could put as many links as you like in there, and it just keeps them in these little blocks. If you want to change the look of it, again, we can edit web part when you can change how these are laid out. So we can have tiles, have buttons, have a grid, all these different setups. A button on there, we'll keep that. Again, republish just to see what it looks like. You can see we come in much more specific to my class now. And we've actually got some relevant links straight at the top of the page. So we said we'd leave assignments and class schedule alone. We're quite happy with those two. So we're going to come down and just look at this about me and recent files. So we'll talk about files again. So I'm going to click edit. I'm constantly editing and republishing my page. That's what you do in SharePoint. This about me section, now it allows you to add a little bit of information about yourself, which is great. You might not have met a lot of these students before, and maybe they want to know a little bit about you. So we can click on this first tile here, and we can add some information into here. But you will want that to connect to your account within the tenancy. So I'm just going to add myself in here and get rid of that one. So if I type my name in, see our teacher will pop up there. They get the nice little profile image as well. So I can remove that original one. And then he can add a description about himself. Maybe he'll say a little bit about his favorite subjects. Maybe he'll do a little icebreaker and talk about his hobbies and what he likes to do outside of school. And you can add profile links as well. So maybe you have a Twitter that you like to teach from, or you share loads of nice information. You could put that link in there. Any links really that are relative to your profile. Another great thing about this is I could add in a co-teacher. So we could be teaching this together. I could bring another teacher in here, and then we could add another description. If I have a teaching assistant, some of the students might not have met them before, we could put them in there. This is a physics class. We could add a lab technician in there so that you can just learn a little bit about them if they've never met them before. Or you could put your head of department in there for the head of science, and then they've got their information in there as well. So let's say Helen is a science technician. So that's a very quick, easy edit, and it just personalizes the page again. To the right, we've got recent files. So this is bringing in files for every user. So this is the teacher who's been in this worksheet. It's bringing up those recent files. If we click on here, we could edit this, and it's letting you know where the source is of these files. Now, to sort of answer that question a little bit about resources, if you drop this down, let's just have a look. Where was I? Am I in the right thing? Sorry, I got a little bit confused there. If I go to document library on this site, so this is the team, the class team, I can click on here, and it does actually bring up my libraries from the files tab in Teams. So the student work there, but I could switch that to class materials if that's an area that you use within Teams, and that's read only to students. So that's quite nice. I could put that, displaying that. And currently we just have one PowerPoint in there, but it's just going to bring those files up. So I might rename that to class materials now. That's another nice little edit you can make. Brilliant. Okay, so with a few minutes of editing, I've gone from out of the box to something that's much more focused around our class specifically. So we've got class information, some handy resources. We can go straight to, say, the physics department from here. Look. Let's go back. and we could go straight to our little flip grid that we've set up as well. Brilliant. So are there any questions around that so far? I appreciate if you've not seen SharePoint editing before, it's quite a whistle-stop tour of editing web parts. Just check the Q&A. Brilliant. Cool. So that's sort of level 2, if you like. We had level 1 out of the box. Level 2, let's just edit what's already there and customize it. Now, level 3, if you want to take it to the next level, is adding your own custom web parts in and maybe editing the section and layout. Won't go into too much depth on this, but you can see here, for a start, everything looks a little bit like it's floating around in space here, and the layout's a little bit bizarre. So if I go into edit, just remember this is modular, so I can drag things around. Maybe I want those resources next to classroom changes here. I could drag that. That will go up into the next section, and you could put it underneath it, for example. So everything's movable around the page. You can swap things over just by getting that little 4-way directional arrow and clicking and dragging. So I'm going to have a look at some extra web parts you could put in. Let's just use a couple. So first thing I want to do is, I don't like this bit at the top, as I said, with just one column all the way across. I'm going to add a new section in, and I'm going to make it 2 columns with 1/3 on the left there. So yeah, you can just stagger things around. I'm going to drag this text box down into here, and then I've got a nice empty column on the right hand side. I'm just going to add something new in. So let's put in the web part picker. Wherever you have an empty space, you'll see these plus buttons. So I can click on here, and this brings up your web part picker. Now the world's your oyster now with adding things in. You can do all sorts of things with SharePoint. I'm just going to show a few that I think are really useful in this context. So let's have a look at the countdown timer. This is a great web part to sort of set and forget for your class. If I click on here, this brings me the countdown timer web part, and again, we can edit all of the parts in here. So we could have a countdown. This is a GCSE class to the GCSE physics exams, and that will count down throughout the year. So if I edit this web part, I can pick a date to count down to. If anybody knows when those exams are, let me know. Let's pick June 23, Wednesday. It's not going to be at 3 AM. And that will display a countdown up to that date. You can also add a background image as well to make it really stand out. Again, I'm just going to use my stock image because it's nice and quick and they look really, really good. So types in exam, that's a good one. I'll pick that. You can see here now I have a timer to the GCSE physics exams in here. You can play a little bit further. We can have different overlays, colors, black or white, and you can tweak that just to look right depending on the image. I exit that there. You'll see now I have my text and my physics exams on the right there. Let's just republish. Expand that. So that's jumping into sort of editing and adding your own custom web parts. There are so many to play with. We can add in things like YouTube videos, Twitter feeds, as well as all sorts of interesting things. But if we try and stick with these ones that are dynamic, that are interesting and are visual, it's going to appeal much more to our students. And I don't have to keep coming back in here and editing the content to suit every week. That is just going to count down all the way to the physics exam now. So I can keep my students on track. Next little thing in editing SharePoint pages is, out of the box, everything has a white background and it does look a little bit like everything's floating around in space. So I'm just going to go into edit here. And if you really want to polish your SharePoint skills, you want to start thinking about section colors and spacing as well. So the top of the screen is white. If I click anywhere in here, I want to edit the entire section. So I'll come down the left and I can click edit section at the top. And this is where you can choose how many columns you have. So if you wanted another web part in there, you might want a second column, or you can go up to 3. But I'm just going to change the background shading, and it just makes my page look a little bit more interesting. But also it differentiates between this section and the next. So at the top, I have my really important information. I'm going to edit that. And then I'll choose a slightly different color, and we're just making our page look a little bit more interesting. If you have any web parts that look unsymmetrical as well, I definitely recommend bringing up your web part picker. So look for a little plus. I want to insert a web part here. And you can use the spacer as well. This is a great tool for just balancing out your pages. If I add that in there, I can now have control over where everything sits on the page just by dragging it to different pixel mounts. Refresh that. It shouldn't display white. Refresh again. There you go. So you can see everything looks a little bit more symmetrical, laid out well, easier for the students to see the different sections. So now I'll come down here and I've got resources, meetings and assignments, and then I've got about me at the bottom. I could put that in a different section with a different color, and I can use spaces to move these around as well. Okay, so shuffling things around, just go into edit mode. We can shuffle individual web parts. We can shuffle entire sections up and down the page if we wanted to. If you want to add any images, remember to use stock images or high quality images. Use different sections, either 2 columns, 3 columns, 1/3 right, 1/3 left, and that will create a little bit of interest in your page. And also, if you do find things are a little bit unsymmetrical and you really hate seeing that on your page, you can add these spaces in and you can push content around so you can get a really nice layout on your page. Okay, so conscious of going into so many different things with the web part picker, there are so many different things you can do. If people have any questions of things they'd like to surface on this page, or if they have any ideas, please let me know and I can explore those. But otherwise, I'll leave it over to a little bit of Q&A if anyone has any questions about that so far. All quiet. Everyone's either really happy or really overwhelmed.
I think that's really good, Joe. It's you know, the transformation from what it was originally. I mean, it looks completely different. I guess they can pair size it for their classes, and if, like, say, if they've got something like an exam coming up, they can put the countdowns on there. They can be really interactive, and you've done that in a few minutes, haven't you? It's not taken, you know, all day to update that.
Yeah, and the more you do it, you get used to SharePoint if you've not used it before. Getting used to those different sections and things like that. There's a lot of clicking and there's a lot of options, but it's quite fun.
In terms of the sections, Joe, do you get the 4-page width section, or is it limited to the sort of the 100% one, because I know there's you can add in like hero banners that stretch the whole page, can't you?
Yeah,
Is that available in the class team? I wasn't quite sure.
it's a great question. I suppose it depends whether it's comms or a collaboration site.
I guess because it's a team site, you don't get the full option, but you do get the vertical section, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it could have sort of sidebar down there as well.
Editing about a vertical section might get a little bit tricky in this small screen space, and you can see it's not vertical when you first add it. But maybe I'd quite like my resources, because these are little buttons. I could drag that down and drop that into my vertical section. Let's just whoops, give that a color. Where's the edit button for vertical section here? Whoops. Let's add a nice strong color to that, and we'll republish it. Let's just see what that looks like. So interestingly, the vertical section, I don't know if it's to do with my screen space there, it's actually gone horizontal. I wonder if that's because we're in Teams. Let's just check. It's definitely, yes, that is a vertical section. Move to the top, move to the bottom. That's a great question, Tony, because that looks like it doesn't display vertically.
I'm guessing you probably need a bigger screen, maybe.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing a lot of students will be using their mobile devices as well. So I was quite interested to see how this looked in the mobile app, because a lot of students will be using their phones or their tablets to access these sites. And just having a look at that now on my phone, it looks like there isn't an option to see it on the mobile app just yet. So it is very much seems like it's very much a thing for the desktop machines, for the full sort of Teams app, rather than mobile.
Great to see what it looks like. Has it been brought into the Teams app yet? I don't think so. So you won't be able to view it in the Teams app. I'll double check that.
So I know Microsoft are releasing sort of the Viva stuff for Teams, the Teams app. So maybe that will open some doors to showing it in there. So at the moment, it's very much designed for a desktop. So those sections that you see there are probably going to be the way that they're displayed for end users, rather than any sort of mobile view currently.
You can see there that I've just zoomed out in the browser, and it has put it as a vertical section. So it is adaptive, isn't it? It depends on your screen size. But now you can see when I zoom out, it is a vertical column. Yeah.
It'd be really interesting to hear from teachers, is this useful? Is this a useful feature? Is it going to change anything in the classroom? Is it just more work for teachers and you prefer it to be turned off? Share your comments with us either now in the live session or on our YouTube page. It'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's about drawing a line and saying what is already done in Teams and what can this add to it, rather than duplicating things.
Great. Well, thanks, Joe. That was a really good demonstration.
No problem.
Have we got the contact details if people want to get in touch?
Yeah, I'll just bring that up. Lots of issues with my screen display today.
So if you did want to get in touch, we've got some QR codes here at the bottom. Our YouTube channel, Facebook, Twitter. We've also got our newsletter that you can sign up for. And if you did want to get in touch with us at all, we've got solutions to help you automate the team, so you don't have to worry about that, to create the central resource areas, but also just help you with the general digital transformation of your multi-academy trust or school. So we've got trainers, Joe's one of them, who provide the courses for schools, but we also help you with sort of the digital strategy planning, user adoption reports, so we can help your school embrace the technology to help save teacher time. So if you did want to get in touch with us, there's the website address there. So you can go to the website, click the contact button, fill in the boxes. There's also our email address, so info@clouddesignbox.co.uk, and the phone number if you want to have a chat with Joanne or Francesca on our sales support team, and they can have a chat with you and hopefully help you out. So thanks for that, Joe. Really good. Really interesting stuff to look at. And thanks everyone for attending.
Thanks everyone. Cheers.